Can at this point China be pushed back out of the Tibetan territory, keeping in mind how deeply entrenched the Chinese and the Communist Party of China are in Tibet?
Well, Megha, as you said, the Chinese PLA armies, they began by building roads and stayed with the Tibetans for years as friends before they actually illegally occupied Tibet and drove our political leader, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, into exile. They've called that violent annexation a peaceful liberation today, and they claim that they have brought development, invested in infrastructure, housing, hospitals, schools. But the fact remains that till date, China continues to loot our rich natural resources, our land for their own economic prosperity and mass Chinese immigration into Tibet and tourism, and actually the Tibet's strategic position to enable their movement and control of its military. And when I say that, I believe that their point of attraction and focus remains India. And the Tibetan government representatives, they were forced to sign the so-called 17-point agreement, where which recognized that China's authority over Tibet in return for a promise to protect our political system and Buddhism. But instead, today we know that China remains the biggest threat to our political belief and to the centuries-old Buddhism that we cheer on to. China in the United Nations or any other platform, they claim the existence of a number of monasteries in Tibet, but doesn't mention about the destructions of thousands of them during their orchestrated cultural revolution, when thousands of monastic institutions were destroyed. And today, actually, the mass political indoctrination in the name of so-called political re-education is practiced in all these monastic institutions. So I question, is that actually religious freedom? And our father tongue, it's the kind of module that they've brought where our father tongue actually becomes a second language, where it's taught only as a language class. So what I want to say is the position of Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese PLA armies in Tibet not just remains a threat to us, to our people within the territory, within the occupied territory, but also its neighboring countries, particularly India. And therefore, it is important from our experiences, where we signed the 17-point agreement with the hope and trust that they would stick to it. I believe that now the Indian government and the people must realize that any form of bilateral agreement with China, they will never uphold them, because we are seeing that right now.
Absolutely.
So what I'm
you talk about the atrocities that have been meted out, the human rights violations, the crackdown on the Tibetans. You've mentioned about how there is synicization, there is re-education, internment camps. You talk about, your religious scriptures are being destroyed, monasteries, your pagodas are being completely Hanicized at this point of time. Even the architecture is being built in the way that the old traditional Han civilization would have liked its mainland China to be looked like. And that's exactly what is happening parallelly. The same modus operandi being brought about in Inner Mongolia, the same modus operandi which is being witnessed in Xinjiang. They are trying to take control of Taiwan, but obviously there are forces at play with the help of the United States that is keeping Taiwan steadfast in its resolve to continue to be autonomous. Hong Kong, as a matter of fact, has gone ahead and witnessed atrocities from China. It has gone ahead and succumbed to its fate against the Chinese might. It's the first year anniversary of the total control being given to the Chinese mainland under the Chinese Communist Party. And there is no freedom of speech. The pro-democracy protesters are quietened down, and the world has witnessed this from the sidelines without being able to do anything to ameliorate the situation. What do you think is the solution in sight? Because this happened some 5 decades ago and more with Tibet, and it is happening now in 2020, and still the world seems to be at complete misery to go ahead and resolve this solution at once and for all.
Megha, it's not just about the threat that Chinese Communist Party under the leadership of Xi Jinping places onto the occupied territories like Tibet, but actually free and democratic nations like India. Because many a times we talk about the territorial accusation, how the Chinese Communist Party and their PLA armies are barging in the Indian territory. But we don't realize, and many times we don't discuss actually about the online security threat that it causes within the Indian territory, and the manipulation, the propaganda that they're able to place through various agencies like the Confucius Institute, which exists in India. So what I want to say is, China actually on this day justifies its occupation of Tibet through its manipulated narrative of history. A historical fact remains that today Tibet is an independent state under illegal occupation of China. And I believe that under this, today when we see this bright pompous dress of CCP, there actually remains an insecure regime who is aware of the strength of the freedom movement of Tibet, is Turkestan, Southern Mongolia, Hong Kong. So I would say that they use within these territory, they use every form of inhuman forms of repression and violence. But what they do in the free nations like India is using these form of manipulated propaganda. So India must remain very cautious about these things. If we don't remain cautious about it, instead count out to economic gains, trades, it's going, India will have to pay a price like we have to, and I would say that now it's high time that India must focus on strengthening its national sovereignty and security against CCP, not just at the border, but within the territory of India. And I would say that the Tibetan people inside Tibet and around the world are with India on this.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.